decisions for people? And Musk says, yeah, absolutely. That's where things are headed for sure. Very, very interesting. Now, the FTC warns that scammers may clone your relatives' voices. That's a new one. When the scammer calls you, he will sound just like your loved one. Deep fakes. But who answers the phone anymore? The only time I answer the phone is when I want to troll a telemarketer. That's pretty much it. And most of them aren't even fun anymore. It used to be fun when they're Americans because they're bound by our laws. They can only call during certain hours. They're allowed a certain number of rebuttals. Their calls are recorded. And if they engage in any kind of rudeness, they get fired. There used to be standards back when I was a telemarketer. But now they outsource. And whoever they outsource it to, you'll never find them. They're not bound by any rules. And they don't play along. And if they know you're not going to buy, they just hang up on you. Like, the telemarketers are too rude to have fun with. But like I said here, nobody answers. So I don't know who this is going to affect. I used to say to every telemarketer that would call in, yeah, I really want to buy what you're offering. And I want to make sure you get a big commission. But I need you to know that there's no such thing as pandemics and the earth is flat and everybody's lied to you about the news. And by that time, they're usually hanging up on me. Salty Siren says, I saw a lady on the news saying they cloned her daughter's voice and asked for ransom. Wow, they shouldn't have published that. That's like a pretty believable thing. Jumper67 Bear says, hello, my ninjas. Thanks for joining. A scammer sounding like a loved one. Now, I don't see that working like broadly, but in a targeted way, I could see that working because I've spoofed emails. That's how I got a confessional out of the guy that I'm suing. Like, I might actually have a use for this. And I'm not a scammer, but I might be able to use this now that I think about it. So I'm going to bookmark that article. It's from futurism.com. FTC warning, the scanners are cloning your relative's voice to steal your money. The FTC published a consumer alert that the public voice cloning scams is on the rise. Salty says, elderly would buy it for sure. Yeah, sadly. In fact, that's why I quit telemarketing. I was working for DirecTV, selling garbage propaganda, and I was the only person in the training class. There's like 60 of us there. And they're like, yeah, we have a satellite up there. It's geostationary, and it beams everybody these great movies that you're going to be selling. And I'm just in the back like, oh, yeah. I guess I'm the only one here that knows that it's a balloon, if anything. But I quit working there because I wasn't doing telemarketing. I was doing retention. The marketers were from somewhere like in India, and their accents were difficult for people above a certain age to understand. And consequently, they were agreeing to free. They understood the word free. So like, yeah, I agree. Well, they were getting a free trial for 3 months. And then they call me. Like, hey, 3 months ago, somebody called. I couldn't understand him. And my free trials now resulted in this fully paid plan, and you took a bunch of money from me. And my job was to convince them to watch what they bought rather than get a refund. So I'm talking to someone who can't afford it. And I'm like, yeah, I think you really need to watch House of Cards. You really need to watch more Kevin Spacey. You need more Kevin Spacey in your life. I just couldn't do it because I knew they were being slammed. I knew they were being illegally signed up for things. And what I would generally do is I would give them credits and I would help them. And that caused problems with my employer. You're not supposed to give away credits. Oh, really? Yep. Mizelle says, concur. My mother cannot understand. Yeah, look, that's the thing. The accents, I'm used to a lot of them. But I just noticed there's people of a certain age who had their income in a form of like Social Security, and they're waiting for their monthly income, and now it's been compromised by TV shows that have nothing to do with them. We're talking about cinema. What are these different Stars? Was one of the ones at Showtime. Anyway, moving on. That was my last telemarketing gig because look, I think as a sales, like when you get into sales, I don't think sales involve, ripping people off or tricking or neoliberalistic programming. Sales is just a matter of discipline.
Walking down Duke Street, what did I see? A little black look on the door beckoning me. I had a little read of it to see what it could be. It said this is the court of the 35th degree. I was taken aback a little suddenly as I looked askance at this door in front of me. Yes, there was a black lady stating it to be the Supreme Court of the 35th degree. Until I saw the most amazing thing. The sun and moon are closing in, and all the people carried on down below. Just because they don't know just what's really happening. The sun and moon are closing in.
All right, it is 7/21/2023. This is IPR, Open Phones for Open Minds. And when I say open minds, I don't only mean people who are terrified of 5G towers. Anybody's welcome to call 505-510-4226. And let me go ahead and get the phones on immediately. I'll just get this on early. And I have a list of things to discuss. I saw someone in the comment section was asking if I had any comments on the movie with Jim Caviezel, Q-Beazle. You got to emphasize the Q in that, and I absolutely do. This is something that we've been talking about since before it was really one of the dominant topics today, really because Trump has given it a huge boost by having a private screening out there at Bedminster, which I believe is in Jersey. It's one of his mob boss secret hangouts where they're watching this movie, hanging out with Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel himself. And it gets even stranger, but it's very consistent with everything we've seen so far, when Jim Caviezel remarks that Donald Trump is Moses, but that he is still Jesus. And again, Jim Caviezel played Jesus in Passion of the Christ, which brings a few things into the conversation here. Mel Gibson and this recurring theme of these persecuted anti-Hollywood types. Mel Gibson bucking the system, Caviezel bucking the system. Trump, in his way, is going rogue, and Tim Ballard had to go up against the DHS above their heads to go rescue the children. This is a reoccurring theme
where you're having this, persecution complex on the right, or kind of reverse psychology. They don't want you to see it. This is being suppressed. A big reboot of the general QAnon narrative. Okay, it looks like we're having some audio issues. I thought I fixed them earlier. We were live this morning, and again, it's one of these things. Let me go ahead and hang out for a minute here and make sure that we're not totally messed up on audio, and I can just start again. We can come back later. Okay, it looks like we're having some kind of audio issues. I think what we're going to do, it's kind of a strange thing, and I don't even like talking about tech stuff, but I have two very old computers. One of them crashes. The other one's phone capable, but it has some kind of an audio issue. Mercedes hears me loud and clear. Okay, I'll tell you what. If we have 2 or 3 more people complain, but we'll just let one or two slip. If it gets to be more than that, we'll go ahead and take off. Again, I apologize for that. I have to prioritize things, and I'm in no position to purchase a new computer, and that would be necessary to really optimize things, but I'm going to do it probably next month. I have a few ideas on how to make that happen. Tony Driscoll says, sound good to me. Yeah, look, if it's really an audio issue here where you can't hear me, I can terminate this. This morning we worked on it. Somebody said the gain was too high. Someone said it's better with headphones. Look, I don't want to talk about audio for more than 10 seconds, so let's just move on. So this comparison of Donald Trump to Moses actually goes back to 4/4. And the timing of it is obviously scripted and planned, because on 4/4/2023, it was the 55th anniversary of the assassination of MLK. Now, if you know about MLK, he has been compared to Moses, a contemporary Moses. So I'm thinking, okay, you have Trump in the office on a day associated with the assassination of a martyr, someone associated with Moses, and now Trump is being compared to that person who talked about the promised land, which Moses is shown the promised land, but he never lives in it. He never realizes it. And MAGA is a very similar construct, this promised land. And it is the right wing's tendency here to glorify the past and make that the utopia to bring back rot, whereas the left, the progressives, believe that we need to get rid of the past, get rid of tradition, and embrace this new future they've designed. So Make America Great Again versus the Great Reset. Now Trump is the one leading them to this promised land, and we're seeing the build up here. And interestingly, Mel Gibson is known for getting drunk and ranting about Jews. He's known to the QAnoners as being some kind of insider to what the Hollywood elite really do. And it's mostly just Q fan fiction, which they believe in literally. And then you have Jim Caviezel playing Jesus in the Mel Gibson film. So you already have this weight building up behind this narrative. Now you have Jim Caviezel saying that anybody who doesn't like the movie, if you don't like the movie, you're one of the Pharisees. You're somehow the cabal. You're the Pharaoh. Let my children go. And this ties in not only Q, but even more broadly what you would call blood libel. So it brings back this religious underpinning to Q, and saving the children. I'm starting to look at this more and more as just a psyop. And Tim Ballard's character has been examined thoroughly. Not just us here. Like I said, this story has really gone out, and there are connections with Tim Ballard with going into having to do with Templars, Mormons, and the funding of the entire movie being connected to the same people who funded the Clintons and Hunter Biden. There's quite a lot here to suggest that this is just a very cynical PR stunt / movie to enrage the MAGAs and get them engaged. And the fact that it's a few years too late says a lot. I think it was meant to be a big deal 5 years ago, and it didn't come out. And so I don't know if it's going to have the same impact, but apparently after Trump went and attended it, it got a huge boost, and it's like a top movie right now. Mercedes says, if you want to know who runs the world, just buy Mel Gibson 3 drinks. Well, that's an old narrative, very, very old. And people couch it in dog whistles, and they don't say it outright. And it's also like red herring stuff and very low-hanging fruit that appeals to people who can't really get past the blue pill level conspiracy theories where they can just figure out, oh, it's a whodunit. If you think it's a whodunit, and if we can just point fingers and name who did it, we can solve this, then you're running in circles. And some people have been running circles around various whodunits for their entire lives. Who did 9/11? The informed ones will say it was fake, nobody died, nobody cried. The misinformed will say the Muslims did it. But the ones who veer off the mainstream interpretation, they get the false awakening. And they're told, no, those guys did it. It's the reptoids. No, it's the Jews. No, it's the skull and bones. So if you follow one of these, they did it, you're a follower. Just like the people who are trained to believe what's on the screen. You've just been given a variant because you didn't fall for the first one. You got stuck with plan B. So again, if you think that's the answer, if you think, oh, you know who runs the world, yeah, I have news for you. It's not a whodunit, it's a what is it. And if you can't explain what is it, then what are you? Are you really a truther, or are you one of the dreamers who have experienced some kind of false awakening because you've been served some red pills laced with mental fentanyl? As most red pills are, because the red pill awakening looks like Q now. It looks like following Jim Caviezel and thinking if you vote for Trump, he's going to go get all the child traffickers. And ultimately, this is just a border issue. This is just a political football attached to open borders versus closed borders. And they're saying it's because of the open borders. And now Trump is out there. He watched the movie publicly. And then he comes out with a video statement in which he says that he is going to execute child traffickers. Wait a minute. This is reminding me of 2015, 2016. I thought they were going to go after the deep state, save the children, and take all the traffickers and put them in Guantanamo and execute them. Whatever happened to that plan? Junder's Punkit says Caviezel sounds like a demon. Well, he's very comfortable calling himself Jesus. Very comfortable with that. Okay, so we're going to continue to talk about that movie, Tim Ballard and the Mormon Connections, which are intriguing. I want to talk about rate limits. The walls are closing in on Twitter, and I'm not the only one reporting rate limits, but it's getting even worse. And I think it's maybe it's just exploitation, trying to get the users into becoming paid subscribers. But I got this tweet from Twitter support, and it probably counts against my 6,000. So I don't want a lot of tweets from Twitter if they're just going to use up my tweet credits. We'll soon be implementing some changes in our effort to reduce spam in direct messages. Unverified accounts will have a limit on the number of DMs they can send. But subscribe today to Twitter Blue to send more messages. So they're going to limit the number of private messages that you can send because you might be a bot. Problem, reaction, solution. Who do you think controls the bots? I have about 15 DMs. 15 bots have slid into my DMs trying to sell me on what appear to be mail order brides or some kind of propositions for dates, and I haven't opened them. But they all came to me at once, like in a 3-day span, and I didn't respond to any of them, but I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably an army of Musk bots. That way he could coerce us into becoming a blue check so that they can get rid of that. So rate limits, Tim Ballard, and the sound of Freemasonry. Yeah, I mean, that whole movie is just a wash with cultic organizations. We'll talk about that in a minute here. Now, okay, I think I was right about this. This Alex Stein and Steven Jackson thing. It turns out not only is that likely staged, but it likely ties into the #1 song right now on iTunes, Try That in a Small Town by Jason Aldean. And the Jason Aldean thing is a call out to BLM. And they're trying to downplay it, but the music video features a certain courthouse where some lynching happened, some historic lynching. And what's more, it includes footage from BLM. So it's pretty much a BLM call out. There's no denying that. Alex Stein was also involved in a second controversy that went kind of viral, where he was throwing hot dogs at his Muslim boxing opponent, and the fight's been canceled because of it. Well, it turns out that was staged, and the opponent was in on it. So we're just seeing nothing but PR stunts. Elephant Tusk says, how do you feel about fluoride in the water supply? Okay, fluoride in the water, chemicals in the clouds. These are very basic red pills designed to turn your blue pill dream into a nightmare. So what happens is the average blue piller is happy. And then some red pillar comes along and says, here's a red pill. You drink the water, you die. You drink the water, you become apathetic. You drink the water, this happens. So now he has to choose. Do I become like that guy, and now I'm scared to drink tap? Or do I just think that he's crazy and I go back to my blue pill existence? So some people, most people, they bounce off that guardrail. They bounce off that false awakening red pill and they stay in the blue. Others will be like, wow, if the water's bad, what else is bad? Give me another red pill and another, until they're just addicted to the outrage. They're addicted to the fear, the fear pornography. So what I'm suggesting is that it's a useless fear. Show me an example of how fluoride in the water has fundamentally changed somebody. I don't believe it. I think it's a trutherism. And there's a lot of trutherisms that I'm trying to debunk now. Like, there are people that are terrified of 5G towers. They're afraid of their bath water, sink water. They're afraid of the clouds. They're afraid of condensation trails. And these are all things they manufactured for you to be afraid of. And they target market these things because you were too smart to fall for the blue pill fears. So they gave you some other ones, some sexier fears, fancier, more sci-fi. But it's just fake. Yeah, Kevin Mooring, another great point. The Jason Aldean was the country music performer at the Las Vegas PSYOP. We talked a little bit about this. Jason Aldean, JA, which gives you 9-1. It was Harvest Festival, Route 9-1. That whole event was fake top to bottom. Yeah, look, if you're worried about fluoride in the water, just give some money to Bill Hicks. If you're worried about fluoride in the water, these are some solutions to allay your fears. Give some money to Bill Hicks and he'll send you a water filter. Send some extra money to him for some iodine in case there's any nuclear fallout, because you might still believe in that. And then send some money to him for some super male vitality to prevent the great replacement and depopulation. So just send some money to your red pill dispenser and they will cure you or protect you from the things they told you to be scared of. You see how that works? They sell you a fear. Rather, they use a fear to sell you a product that cures the fear. And they all do it. So that's my best advice to you. Get a water filter if you're worried about it. Now, I don't know if Jones sells 5G protective undergarments, but you might be able to find that too if you're worried about, your reproductive health being harmed by your 5G tower. Yeah, put on some chainmail underwear or aluminum, tinfoil crotch guard. I'm sure you can find something. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this Tim Ballard character, because this is very interesting. Tim Ballard told his associates that his impetus to leave his government job and form the Underground Railroad Organization was President Russell Ballard asking for help finding a child kidnapped from an LDS church parking lot in Haiti. So, Church of Latter-day Saints in Haiti. Some child gets kidnapped, and President Russell Ballard says, we need your help. Now, who is Russell Ballard? He is the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're talking about like a major Mormon leader. He's a member of the 12 apostles of the Church of the Latter-day Saints. So he's an apostle. He's been there since, 1985? Okay, interesting. Now, again, we're talking about Mr. Russell Ballard, no relation to Tim Ballard, although he's reportedly related to Joseph Smith. I heard the name today as Hiram Joseph Smith, which is fascinating because Joseph Smith was replaying the death of Hiram Abiff in his Masonically staged death at the age of 33. Yep, Joseph Smith, 33. Dave Koresh, 33. Tim McVeigh, 33. QAnon Shaman, 33. All these, Charles Manson, 33. Every cult leader kicks it off at the age of Christ. Christ's transcendence, his death, or whatever. Continuing. This is, again, we're going through this character named Tim Ballard. And I use the word character advisedly. And he was inspired by the Mormon apostle to rescue a child, probably devoured by Hillary Clinton. Just a little conjecture. But now, the Russell Ballard story, this is interesting. He said, quote, Tim said, I made the decision with my wife after much prayer and fasting to leave the government and go looking for these kids who are outside the jurisdiction of the United States. After going to the temple, Ballard says he received a clear and undeniable answer. Find the lost children. Okay, here's another thing. Tim Ballard and the Sound of Freedom producer Paul Hutchinson are literally members of the Knights Templar. Priory of Mountain House of the Lord held a convent and investure on 20 June 2015 in which the following knight dames were invested: Timothy Ballard, Paul Hutchinson. So you have it, a couple Knights Templar, part of this organization. Sound of Freedom movie 2023 jumped in the box office numbers after Trump premiered it at Bedminster. And this was said by Jim Caviezel. He said, Moses told me it's okay to unretire his jersey. Says you can wear it for the rest of your life. Love, JC, +++. That's a tweet from Caviezel. So that's cross, 3 crosses, reference to Jesus. But he's basically saying Moses says you can wear his jersey. Look how flippantly they appropriate religious iconography and characters. It's like no big deal to them. Continuing. There's quite a lot here. I got a message from Rocco Calzone, a comment this morning. It's kind of good here. He said, a Daniel Penny tie-in. Because do you remember I was saying that Daniel Penny was the Batman, was the vigilante to fight the Jokers on the subway that we were waiting for? And that's why he got all that money with the Give, Send, Go. Well, check this out. Daniel Penny might be a reference to Alfred Pennyworth. Alfred Pennyworth is Batman's butler. Just another tie-in there to this Batman-Joker dialectic. And the Batman thing, which appeals to the right, is the vigilante thing. And that's another aspect to Tim Ballard and his mission to rescue children. This is also the theme behind the White Hats. Tim Ballard had to go beyond the government's jurisdiction to save the children. The vigilantes are the same way. So vigilantism is a right-wing thing that's attached to the Batman thing. So you have vigilantism, and on the left you have the Joker, and you have lawlessness. Again, Joker left, Batman right. The dialectic they set up here is about look at how they treat the victims of police brutality. To the one side, the police did a good thing. They stopped a dangerous person who points guns at pregnant women's bellies. But then to the left, they killed a martyr. They basically killed Jesus. Echo Charlie joins us. Frank Murr, 737. Mercedes says Tim Ballard is also in the Afghanistan World Foundation along with Henry Kissinger and Dianne Feinstein. Yeah, the more we look into this character, and look, I pointed out one thing in the movie because I went and saw it. A lot of people are commenting on it without having witnessed it. And one thing that I am dedicated to with Infinite Plane Radio is doing the research and getting the first-hand information. It's not enough to bounce off others. We need to go for ourselves. And if you are an IPR Press Pass carrying reporter and you want to review a movie or go watch it for our benefit and save us the time, like if one of you wants to go watch the Barbie movie, I'm sure we can all pitch in and get your ticket and popcorn covered, because it's a service. So we can know what's going on, because we can't be everywhere. Well, I mean, as an individual, I can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. But collectively, yeah, we have a pretty good range of coverage here. But in the movie, and I was in the theater watching it, and it was fine theater. There was nothing wrong. Nobody shut off the power. George Soros didn't shut off the air conditioning. Didn't see anybody from the deep state trying to put any nanobots in my beverage. But I did notice that the movie revolves around these children that are rescued, and the child gives Tim Ballard's character a necklace, and supposedly this happened in real life. And the necklace has a Bible chapter referenced, Timothy 6:11. And if you've been following this channel, you know that 6:11 has everything to do with the right wing and the Timothy McVeigh or the white nationalist, domestic violent extremist movements. So it's an interesting tie-in to Timothy McVeigh, that being his death date, among other things. Echo Charlie says, Cowboy Code, same as Batman. Well, yeah, you can definitely see something with this. There's the left idolizes the Joker and the class warfare thing. Joker's a victim of society. He wasn't given adequate mental health care. And this was the reason for Frank James shooting up the subway. This was the cause of the rage of the Riddler. And the Riddler, again, question marks, masked, anonymous. So what they're tying all these things together here. And so you have the communist left and then law and order right portrayed in the movies. And it's not a coincidence that you've got Christopher Nolan, heavily represented in a lot of this predictive programming. All right, let's continue here. I have a list of topics. Okay, Jason Aldean and his song. So let me bring this up a little bit, because the song is being downplayed by the people on the right, but I don't think we should downplay it. It clearly has some significance built into it that Jason Aldean may not... Well, look, you can't separate him, to be honest. You just cannot separate him from Vegas. And the whole Vegas event was a psyop top to bottom. Nobody died. But listen to these headlines. New York Times, and these are new, 5 hours ago. The history of the lynching site where Jason Aldean filmed a music video. Jason Aldean's music video for Try That in a Small Town, filmed where Henry K.O. lynching in Tennessee. So this, again, NBC News, a look at the courthouse where Jason Aldean's music video happened. The video went to #1. And it is the site of where Henry Coate was accused of attacking a 16-year-old white girl before an armed mob lynched him there. And if you've seen the video, it has BLM in it, and it's a call-out. It's a call-out song. There's no other way to put it. And so why would they do this right now? And look at the outrage machine, it's been set off. The grim history of the courthouse in Jason Aldean's new video. The site of a black teen's lynching in 1927. Now, I'd never heard of this before, and I'm sure most people watching it or listening have not heard about this lynching thing, and a lot of people are really quick to jump on it. Like, I was listening to Candace Owen today, and she's like, this has nothing to do with lynching. And she's friends with Jason Aldean. But remember, she's 33, chaos agent right there with Ye, with White Lives Matter. So she's definitely part of this race war psyop, and she's an agent provocateur. And it's one thing I'm sick of, is gaslighting. I don't need gaslighters telling me, no, this isn't what I said it is. RFK, gaslighter. He says one thing and then denies that he said it, or denies the implication. Well, it's like if you're going to say you didn't recognize the implication of your own words, then you're just telling me that you're kind of clueless. But I don't think that's the case. Tucker Carlson, gaslighting. The movie has nothing to do with Q. Do you realize that there are 2 Q drops that specifically mention the organization Tim Ballard is a part of? And there's a Q drop that mentions Tim Ballard by name. This is a Q movie. And for them to say it's not, it's gaslighting. For Candace Owen to say that this video has nothing to do with lynching, okay, again, there's no plausible deniability. If you ask me, Jason Aldean is part of the Cywar Entertainment Complex. So what we're looking at here is, I think, activation. We're seeing some kind of build-up for some kind of activation of BLM, some kind of tension there. It has to be. Again, Steven Jackson, the NBA player, former NBA player, twin of George Floyd, has been out publicly calling out Alex Stein for having disrespected George Floyd. Now, Steven Jackson is part of the same PSYOP entertainment complex as Jason Aldean. He's not someone who's just a spectator like the general public. No, he's part of it at a very high level, at the highest level. So I'm just suggesting here that he's bringing up outrage, George Floyd, right-winger agitator Alex Stein, who's with The Blaze, which is Glenn Beck's network. So everyone in here who is commenting on it is part of this building narrative. Junker says, clocking out for the night, catch up tomorrow. All right, if you're at ips.monster, subscribe, you get the archive sent to your email. Pippi Langstruff is here, says, yo, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Exactly. It's an insult to your intelligence, or it's an insult to their own, if you take them literally. Like Candace Owen, she literally doesn't see a connection. Okay, well then she's just not a reliable source of information. She's reality impaired, or she's a reality denialist. Cartoon says here, I prefer candle lighting. Well, the term gaslighting comes from a movie where a sadistic, mind game playing man torments his wife by screwing with the lights. And when she thinks the lights are going dimmer, he says, no, it's in your head. Then he turns them down lower. It's in your head. So it's a phrase used to describe the deliberate screwing with somebody by telling them that what they perceive isn't so. And as a form of mental abuse and emotional abuse, if the person who is being gaslit is in a dynamic where they can't question the person, it does begin to affect their reality, where they become too apathetic to question the contradictions. Sound familiar? It's the blue-pilled public. They don't notice the contradictions. If the news media says it's one thing and reality says another, they go with the news media, just as the target of the gaslighter will go with the programming that they're getting, rather than what their senses tell them. Because in today's fluid reality, 2 + 2 does equal 5. 6079 Smith says, it's some good, some bad. She did point out the fact that BLM was stealing money and spending it on mansions. Oh yes, Candace Owen is a principled conservative, but she's also an agent provocateur. So she does make a lot of good points, but she's also an operative working to drive this helter-skelter Turner Diaries race war narrative forward. The black versus white, Joker versus Batman, left, right, guns versus needles. It's a game they play. And it only affects those who are in the dream world, and more specifically and more potently those who are on the fringe but still looking in, trying to influence the dream world. I'm no longer a participant in it in that sense. I'm an inactivist. We're commenting, we're analyzing it as anthropologists, maybe even philosophers or film critics, but we're not lining up in this circular firing squad and taking shots because the TV talking heads tell us to. Pippi Langstruff says it's kindergarten out there. Andrew Munchkin says, anybody else notice the sound quality is garbage? Yes, it's the computer. We're doing the best we can, but it's going to be fixed literally within a couple of weeks. I had to make a lot of moves. Computers came out of storage, and I could be on my phone. That is an option, but I wouldn't be able to take calls. The sound quality, though, will be improved. I'm guaranteed it within a couple of weeks. I actually am very close to being approved for a PayPal business loan, which I was kind of wary about, but I'm looking at the numbers. It's doable, and it would definitely be productive. But that'll be a couple of weeks. I'll replace the towers. And I also want to be able to do live Skype calls, and Skype is a resource hog. Zoom is a resource hog. I'd like to do live with the Discord chat, open up a Discord chat, but these things, again, it takes a bit more power. Ready or Not says it's way better than it was this morning. Yeah, exactly. We fixed it. Yeah, I mean, look, we're in a think tank that has been deliberately targeted by operatives who work for Donald Trump. That's the level of antagonism we faced. So it's actually kind of a small miracle that we're still trudging along, in fact, thriving in this environment, as penguins can thrive and survive in the harshest environment and climates on this plane or whatever it is. Looks like we got a voicemail from, let me take a look here. I'm going to go ahead and open phones, 505-510-4226. I'm going to try something later on. I'm going to try swapping out this tower for my Mac laptop and run OBS on that. That might be what we need. That might actually be the thing. I'm shoestringing it. We're crawl, walk, run, but we're making everything go. And oh, by the way, the e-commerce store is going to be open as of tomorrow. Okay, let's see here. I'm not going to play this one live, but I have been contacted by Dr. Shiva's people, and he's another presidential candidate, and I want to talk to him about his swarm theory. So I'm putting that in my notes. I'll be reaching out to them tomorrow. I didn't want to play it because there's some phone numbers in it. Next message.
Hey, brother, this is 5. I'm just calling to let you know it's Friday night, about 10:40 East Coast, so I guess maybe 8:40 by you, maybe 7:40. Phones ain't working. Listen to your show. Love it. By the way, I heard Richie from Boston left you a message. All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Richie from Boston. I'm still waiting for a message from Regina from Austin. I think she's way more interesting than Richie. She's the one that burns down 5G towers with jet fuel. She's got some sort of black market connection to jet fuel, which reportedly melts 5G towers into their own footprints. Free fall speed, even, which is remarkable. Okay, phones aren't working. Fascinating. Don't know the explanation there. Continuing, Echo Charlie says, people have the memory of a goldfish and it's getting on my nerves. I think goldfish have longer memories than your average TikToker. The TikTokification of the human mind is like it's like there's been a wood chipper. It's like our perception's been put through a filter, but everything's just been chopped into bits. So we're trying to see the big picture, and it's just incoherent. And if somebody disagrees with you, it's not their reality. They don't have to change, nor do you, because there's no objective reality to compare it to. It's like we have a bunch of puzzle pieces, but there's no big picture. There's no order to it. Just create your own reality. But from our perspective, we know the game that there is no real big picture. It's purposefully incoherent. All right, so phones are not working. Thanks for letting me know. I'm not sure what that is, but look, we're shopping for an 800 number. And I'm going to find something that has the ability to hold callers in queue. And I might even look into upgrading my headset. There might even be something with this. But again, I hate talking about tech stuff, but it seems like in the last couple of days, a few parts have been falling off this thing. Truth Faction says, in China, TikTok is only educational. China's space program is an embarrassment to bad space fakery. Like, you thought Apollo 11 was bad. You got to look at the new Chinese space station. They're drinking water, they put it down on the table, and it's like, wait, they're floating in space, but they have a cup of water right next to them, and the water's not floating around. How does that work? And I was under the impression that when China's space station came up, it was going to be upgraded in terms of special effects, and they were going to have to cancel the ISS, but nope, wasn't the case. Apparently, it's just like a race to the bottom in all kinds of areas. Just There's no standards with NASA or with any of these space agencies because the public is just going to believe whatever they show them. That's gaslighting. And it might even be on purpose. It might even be on purpose that they're making the space fakery so obviously fake to your senses, but your conscious mind isn't allowed to appreciate or notice this fact or criticize it. This is crazy making. There's a fascinating theory about the origin of mental illness put forth by Dr. Gregory Bateson, who coined this thing called the double bind theory. And the double bind theory said that if you're being gaslit in conjunction with being prevented from commenting on the flawed communication, then eventually it will drive you into a split from reality as you're forced to work around this. And the point of it is, if you're a news consumer and you live in an echo chamber reality, you're not allowed to question the gaslighting. If you question it, you're laughed at. Eventually, you're taught to lie along to get along because you've been more or less coerced into this alternate reality that we all share. And again, to me, this seems like a double bind. It's a situation where to question it is to be punished, to go along with it though you know it's wrong is to be rewarded, and there is no way to question it without being called a conspiracy theorist, so you're kind of just stuck with it. Okay, continuing, going through some comments. Yeah, phones are down. I apologize for that. You can still leave voicemails, apparently. If you look on the screen, you see a copy of Fake World News, and it says, "Was Gabby Petito another recycled crisis actor?" Yep. The PSYOP entertainment complex is so concerned with green and staying green that they even recycle their crisis actors. And yes, Gabby Petito was the disappeared actress a couple of years ago, drama. She was taken out in a van by a guy named Brian Laundrie, or Brain Laundrie. Very close to brainwashing, but she was in fact a Sandy Hook student who was in a Sandy Hook survivor music video, or some kind of video that came out after the fact. And then she was brought back for that summer drama of Gabby Petito's disappearance. But this is Fake World News. This was sort of a pilot for the publications, the tabloid publications that we'll be getting behind here in the very near future. But if you see that stack there, those copies are going on eBay tonight. So you may want to sign up for the newsletter if you have not, and I'll be sending out links once I have the archives up and these new items posted. McDirtywork says, NASA tried to counter tech catching up with their lies, never-ending damage control. They can't debate. That's the thing, they can't debate. Look, I have a plan to take down some of their bad arguments, but sometimes they just won't confront you. And I've realized something here. I think we can overcome the gaslighting and the tendency of most people to cowardly lie along to get along. And here's my thinking. I want to reach out to several professional video editors, people who can do animation, people who can do, I'm talking better than NASA. Find the best computer animators that I can. People who've worked with 3D, 2D, and of course CGI, people who know all about LED screens, rear screen projection. And I want to get these experts to give me their expert opinion, real or fake. And in front of an audience on a live stream, not telling them where we're going with this. I want to show them, okay, here's, for example, this is a video of a volcano, real or fake. They will be able to say, with their expert opinion, this is real and this is fake. Here's how we know. For example, Boston Dynamics has these robots that come out, and they fight like they dance, they move like the Terminator. People like Tim Pool are terrified of these things. Well, I look at that as an animator and I say that's fake. And most of the videos you see from Boston Dynamics are actually fakes. But they don't tell people, and out of context, these things get circulated on Twitter. Most people don't fact check it. This is because people are visually illiterate. They've been made this way deliberately. Now, my plan, though, is I have these computer animation experts who would be able to know visually, just right off the cuff, whether something's fake or not. And I'll have them go through 9 or 10 different clips, and they'll be telling us, based on their expert opinion, fake, real, fake, real, fake, real. Then I'm going to show them discrete clips presented to us by NASA, lunar rovers, International Space Station, maybe even from the private space agencies, Jeff Bezos' stuff, and Richard Branson's, Musk's. I'll show them Mousegate, but you show them clips out of context and see what kind of results that you get. So think about this. Professional editor, we'll say 20 years experience, he calls out real fake, real fake, real fake, then he sees the mouse on the side of the rocket. Now, if he says it's real, he's a fool and would be contradicting his 30 years of experience. But if he doesn't see it in context, if he doesn't know it's from a certified space launch, he'll say, oh, that's really fake. That's garbage. That's the worst CGI mouse I've ever seen. And then we'll be like, pulling the rug out from underneath them. Oh, well, by the way, that came from actual SpaceX footage. And there are so many examples of things I can point out that you just could not be intellectually honest calling it real. But I think you can trick people into bypassing their own self-gaslighting. And you do it in front of an audience. And you put their entire professional experience and reputation on the line. And will they trash their own expertise to self-gaslight themselves to defend the big lies that have been presented as real? So that's kind of one of the things I want to do here moving forward, is getting outside opinions to look at things objectively. That's the key here. Getting people to be objective, which is very difficult because there really are no objective minds in the world who aren't full-blown auto-hoaxing conspiracy theorists. Joined by DJ Black. Says, I've been following you. Oh yeah, thanks. He says, thanks for the consistency. Yeah, thanks for being here. A lot of you have been here since 2017, 2016, from the beginning of the think tank. And yeah, it's a little rickety at the second, but it's like crawl, walk, run, as I said last month. We're ending the crawl phase. And I've been consistent because this has always been about the methodology for deconstructing the lies, and it's been about honesty. It's been about truth. Not about following blue checks, not about chasing red herrings, because you have to deal with a few different ways that they lie to you. The visual lies, but then there's also sleight of mind, loaded questions, logical fallacies. Peer pressure is a huge part in trutherism. And I think that the red pill community, the people who see through the blue pill dream world, they've been given a false awakening. And all these red pills, all these so-called truths, well, some of them are valid, some are not. But without a structure, without context, without a new framework with which to interpret media, they're worthless. You can go to Twitter and you can find the truth about everything. About SpaceX, about all the shootings, about the mind war. It doesn't matter because, look, we're in the age of Aquarius, the info deluge. There's a sea of information. There's so much mis and disinformation in the mix that there is no structure to perceive the truth. Now we have a structure. It's this. It's the off-world stage perspective. It's the full recognition of what media is and how what the world sees as a screen to the world, a window to the world. They see, okay, the TV screen is a window. I can see what's happening over there and over here. No, it's meant to look like a perfect window to the world, but it's 100% a filter. And if you don't recognize it as such, you might have your head in the box. And that's where most people are. And we call them auto-believers because whatever they see coming from the screen, they automatically assume it to be real unless it's proven to be fake. Like Jussie Smollett. That was an example of fake that they recognized as fake, but they didn't see it as fake till the media told them it was fake. They thought it was real up until the moment they were told it wasn't. What I'm saying is you have to invert that, or rather, it's a reversion, because they inverted it. They inverted our epistemology, how we process our information, by putting the screen before our critical thinking. So to fix that, you have to say, no, it's fake until proven real. If it's an extraordinary claim with an obvious political agenda attached to a bigger narrative. Now, you're welcome to find or look for any news story that exists in a vacuum that isn't attached to the bigger narrative and should be exempt from this fake until proven real. I don't have any news agencies that I give that level of trust to. I don't have faith in any pundit. Like, I don't go to alternative media and say, okay, these guys are telling the truth, because they're countering the mainstream. Nope, doesn't work that way. It's true, and it's not hyperbole to say that the media is all lies. But it's also true to point that the counter narratives are just as rooted in misinformation as what the mainstreamers believe. I mean, it's not a small deal that the moon landings are fake and that nobody seems to care. But it's not that nobody cares. It's that there's nothing to do with that information except laugh and mock them and point it out. But what can you do with it? Is there actually some sort of counter to the dominant influence of our time, the mass media, which has, look, the New World Order isn't coming. There's not some one world religion that's going to take over, as the conspiracy theorists have been worried about for generations, because it's already here. It's just being updated as we speak, and they're actually consolidating it pretty well. Going through some comments. Mercedes says, how was your show not more popular? Hey, after Nipsey Hussle died, and we were deconstructing that, we had 1,200 people listening. Most nights we had 500 people listening, even before that. When the channel started, we were in the 400 or 500 people listening. They suppressed us. We had more than 150 of our channels taken down. And again, it's absolutely 100% a fact that one of our primary stalkers, who hacked into 5 of my accounts last December and January, works for the government. Hacked my WordPress, tried to hack Patreon, hacked into my Vimeo, went into my Kickstarter. So we've been dealing with channel suppression, targeted suppression. Elon Musk has canceled Spaces for us. I pay for my blue check, can't use Spaces. So the reason why the channel isn't bigger is because we have the apparatus of mass deception specifically targeting us. And it's because, again, what we're doing here is actually, I won't say it's a threat to the status quo, but we are creating a space for a parallel media to develop. The infinite parallel media. Like, I have no interest in ending anything. Mainstream media lies, religious lies, these various ideologies, whatever vehicles people use to understand the world. I'm not trying to shut it down. I'm a free speech absolutist. I really am. I think that if we don't agree with what somebody's saying, we should at least defend their right to say it. Unfortunately, our enemies don't really hold to that. But the idea of being a parallel presence means that we're not trying to wreck their system. We're observing it. And those of us who are objectively observing it without getting involved, because there's that expression, Mark Twain, never wrestle with a pig because you both get muddy and the pig likes it. Well, the mass media is a pig. And the political warfare is just a big mud pit. And I'm not getting in it. And the more of us that get out of it, who get off their red pill fixes, get off of their truther feed, get off of that spoon-fed worldview, the more of us who get away from it, who cease to soil ourselves with their filth. I mean, it is filth. You got MTG sharing porn at some White House hearing. It's Hunter Biden naked. I'm like, who wants to see this stuff? Saner minds can prevail, and that's us. And the more of us that do it, the more that it grows, the more difficult it will be to stop people from just going on an exodus. What we're creating here is a media exodus. Mercedes says, can you get a private server? Yes, but no. Here's the reason why we don't. We believe, well, I've determined here that the reason why they want to encourage people to go to Discord or BitChute or any of these alternative platforms is so that they can study you in isolation and quarantine you from the masses and their mediation. So they want to stop us from interfering by getting us to self-segregate. So instead of backing out, my objective is to go in deeper, press on. So one thing I plan to do here within the next 6 months is we have an operation, we have a plan to take all of our best content, consolidate it, organize it, brand it accordingly, where we systematically put all of the content that debunks the major psyops of our time and put it out there where it can't be avoided. Flood Twitter, for example. We have to go to the comments. You can't let them chase you out. AJ206 says this channel's been held back like the government, like it's nobody's business. The original channel was taken out in 2017. If it wasn't, the sub count would be 1 million. The first one they took out that was monetized had 300 videos on it. Now I can't keep more than 3 or 4 videos. They will go through my content. Like last night I had a caller who said that he's frightened that the 5G is going to cause the people who took the vax to be possessed by demons or something. And then the 5Gs are going to ignite the aluminum in the sky dumped by the airplanes. So I'm hearing this last night. I think it's great. You know, let's talk about these things. Let's figure them out. But the thing is, YouTube will go through and they will say, hey, this guy spread some dangerous misinformation, and they will terminate the channel. And you never hear from these callers again. I'm like, who are these callers who are specifically afraid of the one thing that if you say will get you censored? So they don't play fair. They put plants in our Discord servers to shut us down. We had a Discord server with 560 people, and they pulled it for medical misinformation. Well, nobody there believes in the official story, so what was the misinformation? Just something that random people posted and got us flagged for. But as far as a private server, yeah, that's kind of difficult to do. I think we have to coexist. But we do have a gilded server for the time being for organizational purposes. But yeah, it's been an uphill battle. But if you look, they have deliberately sabotaged some of the best features of the internet. I mean, it used to be a lot better. YouTube used to be YouTube University. They destroyed it. And look what they're doing to Twitter. Rate limits malfunctioning. They said, oh, no big deal. You got to go through 6,000 tweets to be rate limited, and who does that? And Musk was like, you know what, go outside. Take a break from Twitter once in a while. Downplaying the significance of limiting the number of tweets you can see. Now, most people who are noticing this, have reported on this, aren't at 6,000. People are being rate limited. Now they're going to limit the number of direct messages you can send because you might be a bot. So you've lost your presumption of humanity. You are a bot until proven human. You're all essentially replicants now. Welcome to Blade Runner 2023. If you can't prove that you're not a robot, you won't be able to access these features. I have a hard time with those things. It's like, click on all the squares that have a bus in it. I'm like, click, 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 wrong. Click on all the ones that have a fire hydrant. Click, click, wrong. I get those things wrong all the time. I get ruled out. You're not a human. And that's all structured. The fact that Musk is presiding over it and that he's changing Twitter to X, what do you think that is? SpaceX, turning Twitter to X. It's about uniting the empire under the sign of the cross. It's a reboot of Constantine. It's a reboot of the consolidation of a worldview that the power elite are going to hold everyone to. But this time, the Bible is your iPhone. The Bible is your worldview that is totally screened. But it's not perfect yet. It won't be perfect until they've purged those who can see, those with the hot skulls. If you haven't seen the series Hot Skull, it's about us. It's not about your run-of-the-mill QAnons. It's not about conspiracy theorists who follow blue-check state-approved conspiracy theorists. This isn't Tucker Carlson level conspiracy theory. Who really killed Kennedy? Are there aliens at Roswell? Like, this isn't X-Files made-for-TV conspiracy. We're not even conspiracy theorists. But the fact is, the world is run, and there is a conspiracy to control everyone's minds, and they've already succeeded. And we're just the ones who've, figured out how a lot of it works. And it's a leveling of the playing field. Because you have the knowers, who are the liars, who control the believers. And then you have us, who have seen through the false beliefs, and who are becoming knowers more than believers. And that's the leveling. We're not even supposed to know about crisis actors. Like, these are secrets. These are things that are hidden behind NDAs, blood oaths. These are matters of national security, and it's been integrated into conspiracy culture, and now this is why I think they're trying to flood us out. I go on Twitter, and I see these Twitter accounts. They're just massive, and they're spamming some good information, and they throw in some crazy stuff. And the crazy stuff doesn't get vetted, and so what I'm finding is they're destroying the quality of your average conspiracy researcher, turning them into conspiracy believers. It's like they've TikTokified the conspiracy realm to destroy any semblance of skepticism. Like, skepticism is what is needed here, but I'm seeing selective skepticism. Oh, the MSM is fake, but anything I hear from Stu Peters is real. Like, that's not skepticism. That's trading one drug for another, blue pill for the red pill. All right, again, I have to say the sound quality, I will fix it. I think I'm going to switch it out for the Mac for the time being. So if the sound quality is a little off-putting, I will fix it before I put this into the archives. I'll fix it in my video editing software, and I'm going to get the phones tested out, and we'll have all these things fine-tuned very soon. And once it's fine-tuned, we're just going to do what we're built to do. This think tank is mission-oriented. And if you don't know the full scope of it, I recommend following my blog, ips.monster, or go to timosman.blog. You can follow my Substack, and there's a section there called the IPS Insider, INCITER. And this might give you an idea of what the mission is. See, the insider, somebody who has inside information is what we're talking about. And the inside information gives you some insights into how things work. And I think this ties into Hot Skull, because we're talking about, incitement, fire, the fire of, revolutionary thought. So the insiders here, we are insiders who have been able to access information without having to climb their filthy dung heap pyramid. We haven't had to sacrifice babies. We haven't had to send any eggplant photos to Ollie Alexander. We're not in any blackmail circles. No, we just got this information through crowdsourced intel. And this is something that is truly organic and truly, in my view, outside of the scope of the media ecosystem, because they can attack and straw man conspiracy theorists all day, flat earthers, QAnoners, JFK worshippers, but they can't touch this. It's toxic. It's beyond toxic misinformation. This is something that's actually beyond the pay grade of your average teleprompter readers. So my objective here is to take these insights and do something with it. There's a phrase attributed to the founder of the Jesuits. I think he says, "Go forth and set the world on fire." And he was talking about religious fervor. And my thinking here is go forth and set the world stage on fire, which means going after the root of everything here. Uprooting people's misconceptions, exposing the sleight of mind, the stage magic, the illusory nature of it all. One of my favorite channels on Twitter that does this is Les Luthor, LEZLUTHOR. Les Luthor calls this illusion warfare. Because, what do we call it? Info war? It's been appropriated. In fact, InfoWar is being doubly appropriated. So Alex Jones creates Info Warriors, and he recognizes we are in an information war. But then the WEF, Klaus Schwab, one of our frequent callers, he has called for Info Warriors to combat misinformation. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Is it me, or is the World Economic Forum kind of stealing the whole info warrior concept or term from InfoWars? And absolutely. And this is another tactic of the mass media to co-opt in order to bury. All right, going through some comments here. We have about 60 people present. Thank you all for joining. If you want to follow my Twitter account, it is RealTimOsman, and feel free to post your links. Someone posted a link earlier. Actually, this was texted to me. So yesterday I was talking about Jim Carrey in particular and the Dog Star. We got into this because we're in the dog days of summer. Keanu Reeves is in a band called Dog Star. And I was talking about the movie The Truman Show and how he wakes up to the illusory nature of it all, how it's all staged, after the Dog Star from the movie set falls to the ground. Now, the significance of the Dog Star, of course, is it's the ball that drops on New Year's. It's the star that it reaches its highest point at that night. And on New Year's, they celebrate this. And this is all very much in-your-face, public celebration of what is actually the secret god of these various religions. They call it the Dog Star, the God Star. They worship it for some reason. Every Masonic lodge has a pentagram. They have the G, they have the square, the compass, but they have a pentagram, which is a reference to this blazing star, which is what they call it. And I said, why is it that you have these movies that put these esoteric truths in plain sight, where the average ticket goer would obviously have no clue? And then you take an actor like Jim Carrey, who's always playing the fool. He's always a clown, slapstick, lowbrow, Dumb and Dumber, and yet now he's in this movie that contains some of the most profound messaging I've ever seen in a film. And that movie was the first one that really, I think, caused me to look at movies in a different way. Like, I was a film studies major, I love movies, but I was just entertained. It's the aesthetics, it's the art. But that Truman Show movie clued me in, and then I started digging, and I never really looked back at movies the same way. Well, someone sent me a link to a website called syncgoggles.blogspot.com, and there's an article from July of last year called The Fool, and it has an image of Jim Carrey and the movie poster The Majestic, and it says it highlights the letters M-A-J-E. In Mexico, the word M-A-J-E refers to an idiot or a fool. So that's a Spanish or Salvadorian word. So it's a non-offensive way of calling somebody dumb, like Dumb and Dumber. Then you have a number of examples that he posts here of Jim Carrey embodying the Fool tarot card. All these various references, but it's showing how Jim Carrey's whole character for this entire time has embodied this idea of a fool, but the fool about to take the plunge is actually the person who's starting on his journey of wisdom. So if you think about it, Truman Burbank was a fool. He was made into a fool. He was a clown at the center of this clown show, and he had no clue. When the Dog Star fell, he realized it was a stage set, and he began to question the gaslighting of every single person around him. Everyone lying to him, denying his perceptions, trying to conform him to their false worldview. So he was a fool. But he began the journey of wisdom upon seeing the star. And what we're seeing here is in so many movie covers, like if you look at Bruce, for example, or there's a list of them here. There's like 20 movies here, but there's a very consistent theme. And one of the themes is Jim Carrey as the fool, which is a paradoxical symbolic character who represents the person who's about to be initiated into wisdom, falling off the cliff The fool's about to step off a cliff, and the cliff represents the limit of your knowledge. And when you go beyond the limit of your knowledge, a lot of people are scared of it. That's why they remain ignorant. But you go beyond it, what do you find? There's more. There's more. It's an endless plunge. And that's the idea here. All right, so this has been great. Again, we're going to have some improvements in the next few hours, or I'm going to stay late here and fix the audio. I'm also going to be finding a phone system. Some of the things we covered tonight, the Templar connection to Tim Ballard, who was inspired by an apostle of the Mormon Church to go rescue a kid rescued from or stolen from a Mormon church in Haiti. This character also being related to Hiram Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormons. We talked a bit about rate limits because the walls are closing in. Problem, reaction, solution. You're a bot until proven human. We are all now replicants. Prove your humanity by spending $11 a month. You need a credit card to prove you're a human now, to get your blue check. The movie Sound of Freedom is 100% a Q movie, despite what Tucker Carlson will tell you. The Jason Aldean video is a anti-BLM call-out video with a reference to a 1927 lynching, despite what Candace Owen will tell you. Donald Trump has been compared to Moses by Jim Caviezel, spelled with a Q. The Moses connection there is because MLK, the Promised Land, Trump was arraigned on 4/4, MLK's assassination date. They're making these associations intentionally. This is powerful. This is ritual. This is some kind of setup for some kind of, who knows, what's going to happen with Trump. We talked a bit about I didn't really get into this so much. I want to bring up some other things about this Jason Aldean as it unfolds, but for the most part, the main thing to take away from it is that the music video takes place around a courthouse where a historic lynching happened, or so they say. I've never heard of it. I heard of Emmett Till, and he was brought up again recently because Emmett Till's lynching brings the Karen character to the foreground and also is the start of the civil rights movement, kind of like BLM was started by Trayvon Martin. But I never heard about this lynching. And I'm not saying it didn't happen, but some people have suggested that it's almost like they're writing history as we go to build the case for things, kind of like they mess with the temperature record in order to claim that we affected the weather. I'm not saying ChatGPT made up this atrocity for people to attach to the music video, but I guarantee that given that this is part of a psychological operation and it's provocation, they definitely put that in there on purpose. Flat Stuff Earth says sup in Clown World. Yeah, this is Clown World. This is Clown World, and it's the circus. And, the bread and circuses, or the, bugs and Netflix, however it's going to be. And Netflix is your Black Mirror. The Black Mirror, of course, put there in front of you, is solely there to convey the worldview. That's why I compare it to the Bible. It is the new Bible. The MSM is your de facto world state church. Scientism is actually the technical name for the religion. But they don't want everybody in scientism. They have this dynamic set up, so it's the traditional versus the new age. It's pretty easy to see it from the outside, but I think when you're in it, all you can do is fight the other side, thinking that there's a point to it and that you can win at some point. And Trump coming out strong, saying, if you vote for me, look at the comparison. Trump says, vote for me, we're going to end child trafficking and kill the child traffickers, execute them. And then you got Ron DeSantis, vote for me, and we will investigate Bud Light. This is obviously, if you ask me, it's an indication that what matters now isn't somebody's ability to implement policy or even to govern. It's really about star power charisma, holding attention in the attention economy. Elephant Tusk says, I would think the smartphones are scrying mirrors. Speaking of scrying mirrors, if you're not familiar with the idea of scrying, S-C-R-Y-E, to scry, it's like with a crystal ball, the image of the witch looking in the crystal ball. That's what the scrying mirrors were. And John Dee, the guy who coined British Empire, who was an advisor to Mercator, so you look at your globe, the Mercator projection, yeah, he was advised by John Dee, who supposedly used a scrying mirror to communicate with angels. Anyway, the two of them have this back and forth letter exchange where Mercator is writing to him about some mountain at the middle of the North Pole called the Black Rock. And this is, again, Mercator projection, a well-known explorer who was, mapping these regions. And it's like, why do you have this? Why do we have this reference to something thrown in there when it's clearly fantasy? Or is it? So if you look it up, the Rupes Nigra Black Rock Phantom Island is believed to be, or was believed to be, I'd say is, a black rock located at the magnetic North Pole. Described by Mercator as 33 miles in size, it explains why all compasses point to this location. Fascinating idea, but here's what it says. Mercator described the island in 1577 in a letter to John Dee. In the midst of the four countries is a whirlpool into which there empty these four indrawing seas that divide the north. The water rushes round and descends into the earth as though pouring it into a filter funnel. It is 4 degrees wide on every side of the pole. That is to say 8 degrees altogether, except that right under the pole there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea, the circumference of 33 French miles, all of it magnetic stone. So you can find a detail from Mercator's map of the Arctic, and it shows this black rock at the center. So I'm not quite sure what to make of it, except that the name Black Rock and the number 33 is very consistently represented throughout a lot of the predictive programming. I can point out a couple of things here. For example, the 3/16/2020 market crash, the Black Monday or Black Moon Day, and that market crash happened 33 years from the previous Black Monday market crash. Ties into Black Rock City, Nevada, where you had 33 Burning Man festivals. There's some kind of connection here. And the name Black Rock has been very prominent since COVID, since the lockdowns. And so I'm not quite sure 100% what to make of it, whether it's literal or not. But if you look at your UN flag, the UN flag has the quadrants, each with 4 sections, because it has the Earth as seen from above with one of these azimuthal equidistant projections. So you see all the continents as though it's a flat land with no Antarctica. And it's divided into 32 sections with a central 33rd circle. Like, what is that? Cody says, I don't care about the Constitution. I only care about Bud Light, Trump, and Hunter Biden porn. Right. Look, the Republican Party's lost its way. I think at one point the Tea Party had some limited government principled conservatives, but no, now they're all statists and they're all looking to control the levers of power. It used to be with conservatives, small government, big religion, but now it's worship big government, just like the left. But despite all this, even if you look back a few years, you're like, well, yeah, you had some limited government types, but they were all brainwashed. They all believed in everything as being told by the mainstream and alternative media liars. Like, we live in, really, this is uncharted territory. These are potentially unscripted times. What we're doing here is, it's 100% cutting fringe. This is the cutting fringe. There isn't anything here like it because everyone else is holding to the media ecosystem as defined. They're carrying water for it, or they're defending it because peer pressure, or because they don't want to lose subs. But whatever it is, their standard is somehow not just pure objective truth. Elephant Tusk says, I believe the black rock refers to the black stone in Kaaba. Yeah, it's definitely tied to that. It's all tied to it. I think the Abrahamic faiths are all about the Saturn and Saturn and the black rock, the black cube. These things are all correlated. I was talking about the movie Asteroid City recently, where they summon the alien, or the alien descends, but it looks to me like it's all just an occult ritual disguised as a funny science fiction movie, where the characters are gathered in this crater where a rock fell from the sky, kind of like the thing at Mecca, built around a asteroid that fell. You still got this meteorite, and then you have the big cube on it. Well, in this movie, Asteroid City, you have this group of people gathered in a crater, and they all put cubes on their heads, like boxes over their heads. Then the hexagonal alien craft descends. And within the hexagon, and this is all just the occult aspect of it, you know, it's two triangles. Triangle coming up, triangle coming down, and they intersect. The triangle pointing up represents the material realm. The black, the kingdom. This is all just symbolism. And matter, black. Whereas the triangle coming down represents the light. So what you have is the intersection of spirit and matter. That's what you're seeing with that symbol. And within that six-pointed star is a hexagon, which is a two-dimensional cube. So they put the cubes on their head. It actually represents union with the divine. Then you have the alien, like Elohim, El, Saturn, light, descending from above in that craft. And I'm just saying that the movie is representing that the power elite are somehow, even the word elite contains El. Their whole cult and all of its various aspects, all of its facets, it all comes down to the black cube, the black rock, the black screen on your iPhone. It all comes back to the same thing. Go Fire, Go Light 369 says, Robert Zephyr just made a pattern and the occult meaning. Yeah, please drop it. Here's another insight that we had here on this channel. You know, years of looking at this stuff and usage. The number 4 and the number 2. 42. You see the number 42 often associated with Saturn, and the number 24 too. But these numbers, when put together, 2 and 4, it's like a bind rune, is what you would call it. It means something separately. If you look at the astrological symbol of Saturn, it looks like a cross and a 2 combined. The 4 is a cross, represents the 4 seasons, like the 4 suits on your cards. You got the hearts, the diamonds, the spades, and the clubs. Well, that refers to, in the tarot cards, it actually refers to the cups and the pentagrams and the swords and the stabs. This is why you have 52 cards in your deck, 52 weeks, 4 seasons. It's all the solar allegory. Well, Saturn is the reaper, the harvester. So the 4 is the cross, the 2 is the scythe. And just as an example, Jeff Bezos spent $42 million on a clock and put it in the Sierra Diablos Mountains in Texas. So a big clock in the Devil Mountain. 42 is your Saturn symbol. The clock is Kronos, again, god of time. Saturn. These are all correlated. Elon Musk puts 42 on everything. Again, it's because of what they worship. Why did he put 42,000 CubeSats in space? Fake as it is. Why 42,000? Well, the cube, Saturn, satellites, the EL, it's all encoded into this thing. Again, 33 and 42 are two of the numbers we see most prevalent in their psychological operations, and I think these represent the twin poles, the black and the white, light and dark, or soul and matter. It's their black and white Masonic checkers that you see with everything. I think it all comes down to the closest luminary, the sun, and the most distant that rules the night, Saturn. And again, it's all an astrotheological cult, which means that their religious narratives and mythology are actually based on the stars and the constellations above, encoded. But it's not just the religions that are astrotheological, it's the media, which is the new de facto religion. This is why we see occult rituals on TV all the time. It's the same ancient cult that runs the world, but everything's been updated. Their obelisks are now rockets, heaven is now space, and they just find other ways of representing these characters. Why do you think you have so many 33-year-old martyrs? Starting churches, Joseph Smith or Timothy McVeigh, they use these numbers because they're conveying something to insiders. Most people don't see it. Most people don't see the esoteric meaning behind Truman's awakening because they're not insiders. That was my epiphany after watching that movie. I realized that there are either insiders in the movie industry. One second here. Security's here. Yeah, door's open. Yeah, everything's good. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just heard you speaking.
Oh, do you have a card?
Yes.
Great night.
Good night, man. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. In the new office here, security's doing their checks. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap up for tonight. I'm going to be fixing the phones. Hopefully we can get them back on. I want to get that video for Robert Seffer on Saturn, if you can post a link. And let's see here. Elephant Tusk says lots of Guardian references as well as with the Space Force. Elephant Tusk says, "Sir, heard you speaking too much truth, had to stop by." Yeah, that's why I'm here late. I don't want to inadvertently spread mind viruses, to people who aren't specifically seeking them out. Now, there's a movie I want to go see to review it. It's called Cocaine Shark. And I may check it out because it sounds crazy, but you got to look at the shark and the symbolism in context. We just had the 48th anniversary of Jaws coming out, and someone pointed out that, I think it was Synchro that Jaws, the shark, is very much shaped like that submersible, the Titan, that went down on the day we entered the sign of Cancer. But the significance of the shark is the reoccurring theme of the abyss, the Kraken, and then recently the Destroyer. The Oppenheimer movie makes a reference to it. Well, in the abyss, in Revelation 9:11, you have Abaddon, the Destroyer. And the idea here is that this creature from the abyss rising to the surface, it's all just symbolism. So Jaws, the Kraken, and the Kraken was originally a big crab, and we entered the sign of the crab. That's what Cancer is. It's a symbol, I think, that was also reaffirmed by the submersible, which again, it's like a crab going in. Has the shell going down into the depths, descending. But again, the Titanic, the place where it is, where it's been studied. In fact, James Cameron went down there on 33 separate dives. James Cameron, who has a $33 million mansion, he went down there to film a documentary called Ghosts in the Abyss. So again, in Revelation 9:11, it talks about the destroyer in the abyss. So there have been all these references, again, to this Kraken, destroyer, the abyss, and I think it all ties in even to the science fiction character Cthulhu, who landed with the elder gods at Point Nemo, where you have 20,000 leagues under the sea. All these references to something from the deep rising. So now we have this movie trending right now called Cocaine Shark. And I think it might have some predictive programming value, concurrent programming. Obey News 13 says, just because a powerful elite warship doesn't mean it's incorrect at all. Right. Look, the fact that it's consistent with previous or older religious paradigms just suggests that it's a continuation of the same. What we see is what you'd call syncretism, where they find compatible symbols to replace or to masquerade what is actually behind it so that they can have a cover. For example, here I see evidence of Santeria being very popular. It's a religious paradigm that came from the whatever you believe about history of the past. You have the transatlantic slave trade narrative where you have this imported population, and then their traditions get merged with the Catholic traditions to where you can find grocery stores here that sell votive candles that have Catholic saints, but the names are all African gods.
I don't know though, because Leslie's the one who does all this. We just come in here and just.
Interesting. Okay, I might even put one of my own up, but no, I had not heard about that.
What's your name, by the way? Yeah. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Sorry about that. Security just came in again. Apparently, and I noticed something here. Somebody had put a rock on one of the outside doors to prop it open. And there's some people living in the stairwell behind this place. So he's just letting me know that the door out to the back was open and no big deal. I'll probably put my camera on. I have a pretty good view of the parking lot from the window here. Okay, so a couple interruptions by security, no big deal. I'm going to be taking this thing through my video editor and trying to fix the audio because, again, it hasn't been perfect. Was it a black rock? Yeah, no kidding. Kind of creepy, though, because I am the only person here in this place at this hour. All right, well, anyway, this has been great. Appreciate your patience as we, put this all together. We're still in the crawl phase, but look, once we get this thing moving, we're not really going to ever be dragged back down. If you didn't know, this channel's had its fluctuations, but I think we have a pretty clear trajectory to continue. Despite we actually have workarounds for everything. We're not actually censored anymore. We're just kind of ground zero, building from scratch because we had to relocate. But you'll see. You'll see here. There's no question. We are mission oriented. There's no question we're going to be reaching all of our objectives here. We are creating something lasting, and it's needed, if you ask me, because the truth community is stagnant. It's drowning in its own self-gaslighting and lack of vetting, lack of skepticism of its own claims. So we're going to be correcting a lot of that, and it needs to be done. Like I said before, we are the only objectivists in the world today. All right, so anyway, we'll be back. Thank you for taking the time. And again, get on the newsletter, ips.monster. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on over to the 24/7, but I'm going to kill a few of the channels. So if you're on one of the channels and it goes off, it's just because I'm going to be resetting it. So anyway, thanks for joining. We will be back tomorrow morning for the IPS morning deprogram. And if you want to get the text alerts, again, ips.monster. All right, this is Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms auto hoax. I'll put a link to the track.
I'm on auto hoax and it feels so good. You know I ain't got time, baby, for another crisis actor with soulless eyes.
My buddy, my buddy and me.
Telecommunications Act of 1996.
96, y'all.
Gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind. The weatherman, he's just another bad joke. You can be a dumb little donkey like Eeyore. I'ma be an auto hoax, and it feels so good. You just ought to believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time, baby, for another crisis actor with soulless